Do you fear coming face to face with a phantom, perhaps a ghost? Well, it was quite different from our storyteller today. Maybe it saved her life. That's a story we'll tell next on Campfire Storytime. This story is from Sue from Vermont. She recently shared it on my podcast, Jim Harold's Campfire, and it's a great one, and I thought you might like it. Sue had recently graduated from college when all of this happened. She was living at home with her mom and her sister, and she didn't know what she wanted to do with her life quite yet, so she decided to take a college class. It was about an hour away from their home. It was in the university town of Burlington, Vermont. It was evening class. This particular evening, it was November. It was cold, it was dark, and she was coming home on the interstate. And then, of course, her car decided to start acting up. She pulled over to the shoulder, and at that point, it completely died on her. This was in the 1980s, the early 1980s, before cell phones. She was on this interstate, and below on the embankment, there happened to be an old 2-lane road running parallel. The spot where she happened to pull, it actually was kind of fortunate because it was one of the few places you could actually access that other road. So in her skirt and her dress shoes, she decides, I'm going to go down there. She said, I saw lights. I'm sitting on the interstate in the dark, waiting for a good Samaritan. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take action. Those lights down there, hopefully it's a house and someone can help me. Maybe I can use their phone. Sue said she's not a trusting person by nature. She was one who took action. It was cold. It was dark. She didn't have a flashlight, but she went ahead anyway. She climbed over the guardrail, hiked down the hill. There was scrub brush and rocks, but she said, I'm going to get to that house. I'm going to get to that house. Well, when she got down there, the news was even better. It actually turned out to be a gas station with a garage. She thought she got really lucky. She goes in. There was a young man behind the counter. She says, hey, my car is up on the road there. I'm stalled. Can you help me? There was a clock on the wall behind him, and he pointed at it. And he says, we close in 5 minutes at 8 o'clock. And Sue thought, oh, what rotten luck. But then the man says, the owner lives next door, and maybe he'll help you. Now, Sue said this has been, obviously, a long time. She could be fuzzy on some details. But all of a sudden, this guy shows up. And he was probably in his 40s or 50s. He was in a mechanic's outfit. And he asked Sue, what can I do for you? Sue said, my car's up there. And he said, oh, let's get in my tow truck and go up and see what's going on. Now, Sue said, again, she was a very suspicious person, but she had no problem getting in the truck with the guy. She just had a good feeling about it. She said, okay. And the gentleman took her back up through this access road onto the interstate. And he took a look at the car very quickly, and he said, I can't fix it tonight. He asked her, do you have a garage we can tow it to? And she said, yeah, but it's 40 miles from here. And the guy being just a real fantastic person, he said, that's okay. We can do that. So he hooked up her car, and he tows her to the garage. All the while, she's thinking how calm she feels, how comfortable. There's a stranger driving me around, but she didn't have any doubts or suspicions about this man at all. He was just very calm, very fatherly, and that helped her maintain her calm. So he drove her about 40 miles to the garage. They got to the garage, and they dropped off the keys, and they dropped off the car, and he was explaining to her what was wrong and what to write on the little slip that she left in the drop box so they know what's wrong. And he didn't do this in a kind of mansplaining way before the term existed, but just in a kind, fatherly way. So he then says, we've got to get you home. And Sue says, yeah, but that's another 20 minutes away. And the guy says, that's fine. He drives her right to her door. And when they get there, he takes this very, very kind approach to her. She says, how do I pay you? I only have a couple dollars in my purse. I do have my checkbook. And he says, okay, how about $20? And in the 80s, even then, $20 was very cheap for everything that he had done. Driving her home, looking at her car, diagnosing it, taking to the place, towing it, just great. So she wrote out a check and gave it to him. And she remembers him very clearly saying, now you go inside and tell your family that everything's okay. You tell them everything that happened. You tell them all about this and let them know everything is fine. Everything's okay. And she said, okay, I'll do that. The next day, Sue, her mother, and her sister were planning a shopping trip up to Burlington. So they were going on the same road. And Sue said, hey, since we're going that way, I am going to take you past this gas station. This was the nicest man in the world. So they get there. Sue makes sure they're in the right place. The gas station is there, but it is completely boarded up. There was even graffiti on the boards like it had been vandalized. Boarded up like it hadn't been open for years and years and years. Totally abandoned. But it was less than 24 hours that Sue had been there. Less than 24 hours after the kindly man had helped her. And she thought, you've got to be kidding me. This is the place. Her mother and sister were asking, are you sure? Maybe you got the wrong place. Sue said, no, there's no other garage unless you go into town. And she said it really freaked her out. To this day, she can't explain it. It was just completely abandoned. Now, she doesn't remember specifically. She says she's not good with dates with cars, but she felt like things looked like they were from the 40s. She said it was just very strange. And it really got her how calming he was, how comfortable she was, and then the fact that this place was abandoned. And one little other note, that check, to the best of Sue's recollection, was never cashed. And if any of you have ever been to a garage, you know they cash the checks. And that is our campfire story. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will like and subscribe to this channel. Also, check out our podcast, Jim Harold's Campfire. Stay safe and stay spooky.